Okay, so the gentleman I bought this bike from had a fellow friend of his working with it named Gary. Gary said, yeah, I did clean the carbs up or whatever, or I think he said that. I was told these carbs were cleaned, or an attempted clean was made on them, but this is what the bowls look like when I pulled them out. You can see all the rust, and not rust, but debris and dried gas settling on the bottom. I do believe somebody went through and did something with them, and the reason I'll tell you that is these diaphragms are usually really sticky. These little rubber grooves love to get real dry and sticky and stuck in there. Okay? And these needles, when they come out of the slides, okay, love to be all varnished up, and there's a little bit on that one, but it looks pretty good to me for the most part. So I do believe somebody went through these carburetors, possibly even replaced the diaphragms. I can't tell if they're brand new or not, but I don't see a lot of slide marks on them. They might be brand new. They might be. But as you can see from the brown varnish on the jets and the floaty, poopy, crappy stuff floating around inside the bottom of the carburetor sticking to the floats, they weren't properly cleaned. So anyway, not to be critical of anybody, but this is what we got. The top sides always look clean because there's no dried up gaskets up there. The slides go up and down in these holes, the needles. You guys basically know how these work. Anyway, now that we got the bowls off, there's your floats. See, the float needles are working. A lot of times you get old gummed up carburetors, and the springs and the plungers, valve is locked up, and it's just stuck in this position where the carburetor was sitting and the gasoline dried up, and they're just stuck there. And you take it apart and you get the plunger out, and you look and see it's all gummed up, and the carburetors are so gummed up they couldn't even get any more fuel to run if they wanted to. So one pain in the tail end with Ninja 250s I've found is the carburetors that get used on these Caheens. They have a tapered pin. So when you knock the pin out to get the float out, be very careful you don't break the pin towers. Okay, they're very cheap pop metal, junk pop metal, and with those tapered pins, if you're banging them the wrong way and you're hitting them too hard, you can break them. I've accidentally done it before myself, so be very careful with that. These pilot jet screws must come out. I repeat, they must come out. About a nickel for every entry-level tech that came to me that said, oh, I did a carb clean on this Ninja 250Q. Why is it still not idling right? Why won't it take throttle when I turn the throttle tube back? Why won't it take gas? Because you did your carb clean, you pulled your main jet out, you cleaned up your fuel supply on your float, you pulled your pilot jet out or slow jet out and cleaned that circuit up, but you didn't pull this out. There's a hole behind that needle. What that screw is actually shaped like a needle on the other end of it. Okay, when I get it out, I'll show it to you. That screw is shaped like a very sharp pointed tapered needle, and what it adjusts is airflow and fuel flow. So some of them adjust air against fuel. These screws adjust fuel against air, meaning the orifice that screw is closing is a fuel orifice. It flows gasoline, and it's very, very small, and a very sharp tip goes into it. So do not over tighten these when you're adjusting them. Okay, the proper way to adjust these is to tighten them all the way down till they gently seat, and then back them out. And I've found now that ethanol is in the mix, I've found a full 3 turns works best. You want a good full 3 turns to let plenty of fuel flow through it idle. If you don't do that, it's not going to run well down the low RPM range on these CVKs. So do not break them by over tightening them and having the tips break off, and then when you back them out loose and the end of the tips broke off, it's a big pain to get them out. So what I'm going to do now is pull the floats, get the pins knocked out, get the plungers out, get all the jets out, get the jet towers out, get those little collars out that I'm pointing to right there. that the needle slides into. The needle slides into that little circle way down in there. They actually come out from the bottom side. Once I unscrew these, I'll get these pilot adjuster screws out. I mean mixture screws out, I meant to say. And we'll get it all cleaned up. Guys, I hit a snafu in the project here. I looked in my toolboxes and I don't have any small enough flat blades to get the pilot screws out and the pilot jets out to get the carburetor the rest of the way apart. This happens when you're doing stuff at home. So what I'm doing now is what I'm going to suggest the rest of you guys do when that happens to you. When you get to that point in the project where you can't get it apart any farther, you need to do exactly what I'm doing right now. You need to go to a professional. In my version, that means go to work Tuesday morning and get tools out of my flat raiders box and go to work on it. But you know, what you guys need to do is get to your local bike shop, because they've got all the right screwdrivers. I've got a little screwdriver that's no longer than that costs $65. When you guys buy screwdrivers at Lowe's and Home Depot and Sears or whatever, you buy entire kits of screwdrivers for $65. I got one little pilot jet screwdriver this long that perfectly fits the inside of these pilot jets, that gets them out correctly the first time without rounding them off and tearing them up. It's made out of high quality steel with a super hardened tip, and it's shaped exactly correctly. That's why it costs $65. If you do carb cleans for a profession, you can't be rounding off pilot jets and having to drill them out and damaging people's carburetor bores and all that. You got to get it right the first time. So you buy the right tools for the job. If you're going into these carburetors with a generic set of Harry Homeowner Craftsman screwdrivers, you're probably not going to have the right screwdriver to do the job. You're either going to have to shape one and harden it and make it yourself if you know how to do that, or you're going to have to spend the $65 and buy it. But yeah, I hit a point in my project at my house with my Harry Homeowner tools where I had to stop, and that's part of this. So I'm just going to be real, and I'm going to film it. You know, those jets are down in those orifices, and those little flat blade slots are so delicate that if you reach down in there with some piece of junk and round them off, you're going to be sorry. I'm telling you, you're going to be sorry. You might have to buy new carburetors. So when you get to a point in your project that you need a professional, don't mess it up. Go get the help of a professional. It's cheaper in the long run. Okay. Peace out. God bless. I'll show you why I opted for new boots on this carburetor rebuild job. You see the irregularity of that circle? That circle, this surface I'm touching with my thumb right there, should be a perfect circle. And it mates up to the back of the carburetors. This right here is the airbox side, and there's the flange that folds up into the plastic airbox to seal. And then this side seals up on the carburetor. You can see it's not a perfect circle. The reason it's not is it didn't get put back on properly so many years ago. And many years ago, when they put it back together and didn't get it all lined up right and just jammed it in there and tightened the airbox bolts down, this lived like that in that long position, and in that wrong position for a long time. You can see they also bent the spring up. See that, where the spring's all bent? It's not making a good circle. So that's not a big deal. It would probably just pull around and hold, but you know, that's probably that way because, you know, they bent it working on it. But this is this way because it sat for too many years in the wrong position. And with that rubber deformed like that, it's just never going to make a good seal on the back of the carburetor. So I went ahead and spent the money and got a couple of brand new ones. They're not expensive. Very inexpensive. Since I'm doing all the work myself and I got the bike for a song because it didn't run right when I got it, I mean, I'm way ahead of the game to buy a couple inexpensive little parts like this. So I'm going to show you what new ones look like next to these and why it's important to replace them.